recording. Welcome to this special episode of Meetings on the Mound. This is a video episode. I am Caleb, and with me is...
I'm Nate.
Yeah, Nate. I like the hat.
I do too. Baseballism.
Good stuff. We should be sponsored by Baseballism.
We should. They probably already have a podcast.
Yeah, but they can throw a sponsor our way, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're here to talk about Long Gone Summer. What'd you think of it?
I liked it. I thought that there was a little too much Mark McGwire for my taste.
St. Louis is boring, man.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it was a good documentary. I think some people had hope. I had higher hopes probably for it, but I think it was probably unrealistic. I think after the Jordan documentary, everybody was like, "Oh,
yeah,
we're gonna get a Jordan level documentary." It's important to remember the Jordan level the Jordan documentary. They've had that footage for 22 years. So I mean, they've had that footage. So, to expect that level is probably unfair, especially in a 1-part, 2-hour documentary.
Yeah.
So, but I saw some comments about like, oh, this isn't Wrigley, or, why are they using modern day B-roll as opposed to, And I think it's just the fact that,
they didn't have the footage.
Right. This documentary wasn't put together over 20 years.
Yeah. I think The Last Dance really, it spoiled us in terms of what sports documentaries could be.
Right.
As a Cubs fan, I mean, I hate to say that I'm disappointed in it because it's Sammy Sosa. I got some Sammy Sosa in my life there.
Right.
That's something I've been craving for years. And I know there's a lot of Cubs fans that feel the same way. But when you're watching this documentary, it feels like Mark McGwire is the center.
Yeah.
And here is this pesky, nobody, Sammy Sosa, who's coming in to ruin everything for Mark McGwire.
Right.
He takes the lead there at the end, hits a 66th home run, and, it looks like, wait, Sammy Sosa is going to set the record.
Yeah.
And the way that it was portrayed is, this guy didn't put in the effort or didn't put in the stress levels, at least, that Mark McGwire put in. So he doesn't deserve the record. This is Mark McGwire's show, so Mark McGwire's going to put it on.
Yeah. I definitely got that sense, and I think part of it is McGwire's the one that ended up with the record. I think if Sosa ends up with the record, it's probably the other way around.
Well, and it depends on who makes the documentary. So the guy that made the documentary is a Cardinals fan. So
right, so it's more Cardinals, and I get that, and
I do too.
It was definitely more Cardinal centric. But I'll say this as an outside observer. I don't have a dog in the fight outside of I do hate the Cardinals. So I guess I do have a dog in the fight. But
he had Griffey for like half the season that was in there, man.
Listen, I'll say this: if Griffey would have taken steroids like Mark did, he wouldn't have fallen off. I mean, that's the biggest tragedy here. If Mark does it clean, then Griffey wins that race. But no, I think from my perspective, I think the biggest takeaway is I kind of felt like Mark McGwire came off a little bit like a jerk, like in certain instances. I mean, that's kind of how I read it. Like, Sammy Sosa seemed like the coolest guy. Like, he was totally willing to be number 2. He was humble. Mm-hmm. He was like, I'm just happy to be here. And, Sammy, to me, came off exceptionally well. Yeah. And McGwire at times came off a little bit tense.
Entitled.
A little bit entitled. Like, how dare this guy? And it seemed like Sammy was genuinely happy anytime he was around Mark. He was like, man, I'm with this guy. And he was like genuinely happy. And it was like Mark looked at it. You could tell he kind of looked at it like, I don't want this guy around me. Like, and even the way he talked about it, he was like, yeah, I mean, we would do the press conferences, but then like we weren't friends. And then Sammy's like, oh yeah, he's like my best friend. Like, we're friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I could be reading too much into that too, but I just know a little bit about the culture Sammy came from, and that's very cultural for Dominicans. Is a very friendly culture, and the way Mark acted was a little, sadly, some of the negatives of American culture when Americans are around Dominicans. That's
I don't know who this guy is. I knew he played in our league. I don't know anything about Sammy Sosa. I mean, how do you not know about Sammy Sosa?
Yeah, I mean, he did. Listen, in '93, 5 years earlier, he's a 30-30 guy.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like saying, I don't know who Barry Larkin is. You knew who he was.
Yeah, and in '97 is when he went to St. Louis, and your biggest rival in the division is the Chicago Cubs, and their biggest guy is Sammy Sosa. You know exactly who Sammy Sosa is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was big time in there. Like, I didn't know who he was. Like, that's trash.
Yeah, absolutely. He's from the Oakland A's. What do you expect?
Yeah, exactly. They got their butts kicked in '90, and they're
still mad that they got their butt handed to them in 1990.
Right. Yep. But I think that very much came through, and I think Sammy Sosa came out looking better for it, and I hope, like you've said, that the Ricketts family noticed it, because one glaring thing at the end is McGwire is inducted into the Cardinals Hall of Fame, and then it's like, well, Sammy Sosa hasn't even been invited back to Wrigley.
Right.
And, the argument could be made that Sammy meant more to the Cubs than McGwire meant to the Cardinals.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, if you take the body of their work,
Sammy was there for nearly a decade.
Right.
And Mark was there for 4 years.
Right. And all of Sammy's big moments outside of 600 are in a Chicago Cubs uniform.
And number 600 was against the Cubs. So, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I'll say this too. I know some people were commenting about, and I knew they would, about Sammy's skin color and kind of the way his transformation or whatever. And I'll say this. And I saw somebody post it, and I thought it was very good. They were like, look, you can say a lot of things about Sammy Sosa, but he has things he's dealing with behind the scenes that you're not going to understand. And I understand, like, I don't understand it, but I have seen it.
You've seen it. Yeah, you've seen it. It's a Dominican thing.
It's a Dominican thing, and it's a thing, Dominicans, and it goes back to Trujillo, who was a dictator in the Dominican Republic, and he killed Haitians because they were darker skinned, and he hated that, and he hated them, and so he killed them. And so Dominicans, even today, there are Dominicans that want lighter skinned. It's thought to be prized to be lighter skinned, to be more European looking, and that's a cultural thing, and so that's something he's dealing with, and wanting to look that way. So people look at it and they're like, "What a weirdo! He looks like a vampire." But in all honesty, it's a man who's dealing with a lot of things, inwardly, and dealing with a lot of cultural issues.
And it's not fair for us to judge that when we have no clue what that even looks like.
Right, absolutely.
And here it's so easy to say, look how he's look what he looks like, look what he did to his skin. Shut up. Yeah. Until you've been there, until you understand it, don't talk about it. Right. Say whatever you want about Sammy Sosa. You want to talk to us about his potential steroid use? Okay, fine. You want to make fun of him about pouring water on his face? Okay, fine. Yeah. You want to make fun of his commercials and the stuff that he did? Okay, fine. Don't make fun of that. That's not okay.
Right. And, I just an example, I taught PE in the Dominican, and it's outdoors. It's the Dominican. It's August. So
it's cold.
Yeah, it's freezing. No, it's like I taught PE 2 days a week. And so the last 2 days of the week I would teach PE. And then it was funny, always on the weekends, I was like 5 shades redder than I was the rest of the week. And so people were like, "Oh, you had PE, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Do you not own sunscreen?" And I'm like, "No, we exist on the surface of the sun right here. So, sunscreen doesn't matter." But I would have Dominican students who would try and cover. They would wear long sleeves and hoodies and put their hoods up because they didn't want their skin to get darker by the sun. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, "You're going to have a heat stroke." And I'm trying to please take the hood off, and they're fighting it within them. And even at that time, I didn't really understand it, and I still don't, and I'll never understand it. But I've seen it, and so when I see Sammy Sosa, I have more sympathy towards him because I understand like he's fighting more than just he wants to look a certain way. I mean, it's cultural through and through.
It's a deep-seated cultural issue that has been there for decades.
Yeah,
and let Dominicans deal with it the way they want to deal with it.
Right.
We can say what we want about it, but we're not walking in those shoes. Do we want to encourage individuals to be themselves 100%?
Yeah.
But if an individual is, especially coming from a culture like the Dominican Republic, just leave it alone.
Right. And I mean, listen, America, we have enough things on our plate.
Exactly.
Culturally and racially that we've got to worry about, that we don't need to dip our toes in Latin America. And
exactly. Maybe we should fix our house first.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we kind of we started some things there too. So we don't really have a place to be like, hey, I mean, America has done enough. So, but I will say another thing that came across in the documentary to me, I don't know if you noticed, it seemed like every time Mark McGwire talked about Sammy Sosa, he had to do the little thing. And I know that was Sammy's thing, but it almost seemed like that was his way of like demeaning Sammy Sosa, like putting him down a little bit. I don't know.
Maybe. I didn't read it that way.
Or maybe he's just an awkward human being, and he's very.
He's definitely awkward.
That's the only thing he could do that got a laugh.
Maybe, but I mean, I remember that summer, and Mark McGwire had this thing when he hit a home run, he would do a fake punch to your gut, and Sammy did that with his 62nd home run. He came running in, and they punched each other in the gut, and then they did the kiss on the fingers. And I think Mark McGwire is just an awkward guy, and that was his way of coming across that, hey, I see you, Sammy. I see you.
Yeah. I think if you look at those two guys, which one looks like he took steroids?
And the only one that does look like he took steroids.
Right.
I mean, Mark McGwire looks like he's got muscles on his finger.
Right.
I mean, dude, he had such and his swing, like I even thought this back in 98 as a 15, 16-year-old, his swing was awkward. It was so compact and tight, but he could do that because he was so strong and had such quick bat speed. Sammy Sosa was just like, any other Dominican player who swings out of his shoes.
Yeah.
That's that style of game. And
and he even talks about it, and he says, look, I didn't come here to walk.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Dominican baseball. It's nobody walks off the island. I mean, you hit home runs to get off the island.
Exactly. And that you could tell that style of baseball is, it's different between the two. So if you look at just muscle and bat speed and strength, Mark McGwire, easily, if you had to pick one, it's Mark McGwire took him. Yeah. 100%. Now he did come out and admit it.
Yeah.
And I think his statement tonight was perfect. It was, and I regret it, and I don't condone it, and I don't think anyone else should be going out there and doing it. But there was nothing in place.
Right. And that is true. I mean, there's no drug testing. You're not testing for it. You're not saying it's wrong. And that is where I get, and we've had this discussion before. Yeah. And this is where I lose my Reds fan card, because I'll say, like, look, what Pete Rose did, he knew was wrong. He knew if he got caught,
there was a rule in place.
Baseball again. Yeah. I mean, the rules are posted in the clubhouse. Everybody knows that.
Everybody knows the Black Sox scandal. Everybody knows what happened.
You don't do that. Mark McGwire, for better or worse, didn't. I mean, they didn't. There was no punishment. And in fact, there's a lot of evidence that baseball knew what was going on. Yeah. And you're still getting a pat on the back from the commissioner, and everybody's saying how great you are for the game. I'm not going to stop.
And then after the fact, the commissioner can say, well, I heard murmurs, but nothing,
Yeah.
hard evidence. I didn't have anything. And then they imposed something after the fact.
Yeah.
So, thank you for saving our game. By the way, you're out of here.
Yeah.
And I tweeted at Laura Ricketts to, not like she's going to see it, but, let's bring Sammy back, because what we did to these men, it's unfair. It's unfair. So we had one of the greatest summers of our lifetime.
Yeah.
And because we didn't like how they did it, even though it wasn't illegal, we threw them out.
Right.
Both these guys deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, I think I agree with Bob Costas, with what Bob Costas said. I think I fall in his camp, and I know you may not, but I agree with what he said. From a moral sense, I think they should be in the Hall of Fame, and I absolutely look at like that. But I think from a statistical integrity standpoint, I find it hard to be and I find it less hard with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, because with those guys, like we said, Sammy, still has never been proven that he did it outside of that 2003 league test, which was supposed to be anonymous. I think you could come to the conclusion that he did to an extent. Mm-hmm. I mean, his body transformation is somewhat there. McGwire, I think you can look at and say, okay,
100%.
He absolutely did, and he admitted it. But the one I have the biggest problem with from a purely statistical standpoint is Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
He also came later. He also knew things were starting to be put in place when Bonds was there. Yeah. And Bonds was so massive that Bonds made McGwire look small in some aspects. I mean, just the shot of Bonds hitting his record-breaking home run, his head is so big that it's just and so that's where I get it. There's where the baseball purist in me looks at it and it's you know what? That's not as cool as Mays hitting the home runs that Mays hit. That's not as cool as Babe Ruth hitting the home runs that they hit, because they didn't have the steroids. And I think we can't say that they wouldn't have done them.
And
but it's not as impressive to me.
Right. And to that point, I don't think Hank Aaron was overly happy for Barry Bonds when he broke his career record, and understandably so. Hank Aaron worked really, really hard for that.
And in an era when it was even harder.
I mean, he was grinding day in and day out, and he never hit. I don't think he ever hit 40 home runs.
Well, and the thing you have to remember about Aaron too is he's still coming to the time. I mean, obviously, even today we still have racial injustice, but you're a black man and you're about to break a white man's record that stood for as long as it did, and for it to be Babe Ruth, who was as beloved as anybody.
Yep. Even in the 70s,
even in the 70s. I mean, that's a whole different level of pressure.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I would tend to agree. I think I would still put Barry Bonds in.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you still have to hit that baseball.
Right.
So,
and I think they should be in the Hall of Fame.
I don't honestly, I don't even look at steroid use as cheating.
Right.
Because when you get on the field, I've always felt this way. What you do on the field is the great equalizer. So you can be the strongest man alive, and you take some of these strong guys out there that are throwing, no, not you, throwing tires up over their heads and whatever they're doing, and
you've been really bored during quarantine, haven't you?
Yeah. I've been throwing tires over my house.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
But
you take a bodybuilder,
they can't hit a baseball.
Right.
And if they connect, 1 out of 100, are they going to have enough bat speed on it to hit it out? It takes a special gift to be able to do that many times. So even with Barry Bonds, and I know you said you do too, but I would definitely put him in the Hall of Fame. I think there also needs to be a footnote. This was during the steroid era, but it's part of our game. It's a long part of our game. It might be a black eye on the game, but it's history.
Right.
Put it in there.
Right. And Cooperstown is a museum. I mean, the Baseball Hall of Fame is a museum. And so, when we talk with Bob Kendrick from the Negro League Baseball Museum, That is named a museum, but it's essentially the Negro League Hall of Fame. I mean, that's what that is, and it's the same type of thing in Cooperstown. Yep. And you have to look at the positive with the negative, and you have to take that, and you have to say an honest look at the game, because I think to just dismiss it and to pretend that this is some hallowed shrine that you can't allow these people in. One, you're building a house of cards that's only going to topple one day. I mean, you get the arguments of should Ty Cobb be in the Hall of Fame now because of the type of person he was. And that's the type of thing you're going to run into if you start with that high of a bar. And then to continue and say, well, these guys did this. It wasn't cheating at the time. We all agreed with it, but now we're going to retroactively act like moral judges and put these rules into place. I think that's wrong. And I think they need to be in the Hall of Fame. Do I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? Yes, it's a separate discussion, but I think steroid users should be in the Hall of Fame before Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. And as a Reds fan,
I would agree with that.
That gets me in trouble. I still think Rose should be in the Hall of Fame as the all-time hit leader. Gambling had nothing to do with those hits. Yes, what he did was terrible, and I think it'd be very easy to say, look, he's banned from baseball. That doesn't ban him from the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I don't think Shoeless Joe Jackson should necessarily be outside the Hall of Fame. If his resume warrants him being in the Hall of Fame, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
I agree.
What he did may get him banned from playing the game.
Yeah.
But he's still that's separate from Cooperstown. Cooperstown Hall of Fame is not Major League Baseball.
If you don't want Pete Rose out on the field managing, okay.
Right.
You don't want him in front office or affiliated, specifically with a ball club. Okay, I get that.
Right.
But this is an independent entity.
Right.
Has nothing to do with, well, I can't say it has nothing to do with Major League Baseball because obviously it does, but it has nothing to do in terms of company interaction. It does not, it's not an affiliate of Major League Baseball.
Right. And so that's why I think, steroid users should be in and players. Now, if you want to say look, I mean, if Aaron Judge gets popped for steroid use, next year or, for 5 years to come, and he gets, popped a couple times, or he gets, that's a different story. 2020, the way we look at steroids is completely different from the way we looked at him in 1998.
Well, and Albert Pujols. So
right.
Albert Pujols came up in 2001, 2002, something like that. So in the midst of all this, if it turns out that Albert Pujols, his entire career, he was, using steroids, then that's a different conversation.
Right.
He's a 600 home run hitter. He might end up hitting 700. I don't know if he's going to get there, but he's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. If it comes out that he took steroids, then I'm looking at him and saying, I don't think you're in, because now, now it's understood that you're, this is in the bylaws. It's in, or not the bylaws, but the rules. Right. We test for it and whatever. Now, thankfully, Albert Pujols. I mean, I've never been an Albert Pujols fan in terms of he's a Cardinal and whatever. He's supposedly a great guy, awesome person, and a great ball player. And I'm happy to see him succeed. But so I say, thankfully, that someone like that kind of name isn't going to be stirred up in all this, because he's been clean so far. But if something came out, then we may have that discussion. But I don't even look at it as cheating, to be honest. What I see with the Houston Astros, that's cheating,
right?
And there has been zero repercussions to any of those players,
right?
But then you've got these guys that what they're doing in the off season is cheating.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too. What they're doing in the offseason, you've got, like you said, the Astros, the Yankees, now it's coming out. That's not going to affect any of those players' ability to get in the Hall of Fame. Right. It's not like they're not going to. I've been to the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame has the 2017 trophy, or the 2017 Astros right there with all the other World Series. They're not taking that away.
Right.
They're not taking that down and saying, well, they cheated or, whatever. And we're not going to recognize that anymore. But you're not going to put these guys in the Hall of Fame because, of what they did. That's, to me, a double standard. And honestly, I think we're having the wrong steroid era conversation. I think the era that came from 2001 on, that's the steroid era we need to talk about. The Manny Ramirez, the David Ortiz, the Pujols, all those guys that hit all those home runs and knew what was going on with steroids.
Yep.
That's the group that we have to look at and say, are these the guys that should get in? Guys before that, it's like there was no rule in place.
Yeah. And even
going back and saying like the guys that killed people in the Wild Wild West, we should look at them as mass murderers. It's like there was no rule of law, so you can't really say they were doing that. I mean, was what they were doing right? No, but there's no law, so they could do whatever they want.
Exactly, and you got to put A-Rod in that conversation too. A-Rod and Manny, I don't put a whole lot into that one either because they did have a lot of time in the 90s. In fact, that's when, was it 99 when A-Rod got his big deal with the Rangers, 10 years, $250 million, and then everybody, blew a gasket. This guy just got $250 million. So, I mean, even then, when they were in their peak and playing, what they were doing on the field, there was, again, nothing in place.
Right.
And, they did have some success, after 2001. A-Rod retired in 2009-ish, something like that, 2010. I know he's not eligible for the Hall until 2022. And I think when 2022 rolls around, I think A-Rod gets in. I think he should get in. Let me say that.
Yeah.
I don't think he will. I think the BB WAA is pretty set on that standard. If you are even if you even smell like you've taken steroids, you're not getting in.
I think it's going to change, though. I think it's going to change, and the problem is going to be when it changes, there's going to be a backlog. And then you're going to get guys that probably didn't take steroids that don't get in because you're going to have a backlog of all these guys that did take. And then you're going to have outrage over how come this guy didn't get in and he did it clean. And that is the problem, I think, with the stance they've taken so far.
Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's the problem is you're going to have Sosa, McGwire, Bonds, Palmeiro, all of those guys. And then you've got the Pujols, the Manny Ramirez, the David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez. You've got that crew. And then you've got the guys that are still that retire, every year that should get in. Yeah. And then you've got players that played when those guys played that haven't gotten in and probably should get in, statistically speaking. But if those guys start getting in, now, what do you do? I mean, what do you do with Andy Pettitte, who tested positive one time? He came out and he said, and take it for what it's worth. Maybe he was lying. Maybe he wasn't. But he tested positive one time. He said, I got injured. I came back. I was having a problem healing. They gave this to me. They said it was going to help me heal. I wanted to get back to my team. I took it to help rehab.
Yeah.
What do you do with him? Do you put him in?
Well, I don't know that his numbers weren't anyway. I mean, he's borderline. Roger Clemens.
Well, Clemens could get in, but I don't think Clemens is going to get in based on nobody likes him,
which is stupid.
Right. Well, that's the whole other discussion. Is part of it is the PR, and I think that's what hurt Pete Rose. I think that's what's going to hurt Barry Bonds, and that's what's going to hurt Roger Clemens. Yep. It may not hurt Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa is still coming out on the Scott Van Pelt interview that just happened a few minutes ago. He was like, "Man, I'm happy. Life's good." Yep. I mean, he's still happy-go-lucky. McGwire still looks like he's super uncomfortable in every situation. Bonds is, started
disappeared.
He's disappeared, but he who knows?
A-Rod is he still alive? I don't know. He's like
A-Rod all of a sudden is like running for president and is like beloved all of a sudden.
Which is weird because he's got the worst baseball takes.
Right. David Ortiz will never not be loved in Boston.
Was he connected to steroids?
Yeah. What there was there was one.
I know Manny Ramirez was.
Yeah. Big Papi was, I don't know if there were rumors, but Big Papi's connected in there. But like, all those guys are different in the way they reacted to the media. And since the media are the ones that decide this award, I think it's going to be an uneven standard.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if the baseball writers looked at this as, okay, we're not going to set the standard. We're not going to fall on our sword. We're not going to die on a hill. We're just going to say, all right, well, let's just pass these guys over and let the players deal with them.
Right.
And you might get lucky with Sammy Sosa because he was loved by a lot of people. He had a couple of years there in Chicago that were pretty rough, which is why he's not been back to Wrigley. But for the most part, people loved him.
Right.
And Mark McGwire was really well respected. So you might get players that are in there that say, you know what, no, these guys deserve it. Maybe the Jim Thomeys of the world. Jim Thome, I'm not trying to implicate him or anything, but
breaking news.
We don't know. Maybe Jim Thome took it and he's in the Hall of Fame and he's got a little, well, shoot, no. If I'm in here, these guys need to be in here too.
Right.
And I think ball players have a different perspective on this. So I think you've going to have a lot of older guys that are saying, nope, they cheated, but they don't really understand what steroids does and what it did for them. And then you've got some of the newer Hall of Fame electees that are looking at this like, no, we understand that steroids probably didn't put up those numbers for you. The only thing that it did is it made you last the season a little bit better.
Right.
And in our reality, those aren't putting up numbers. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Just real quick, Andy Pettitte finished with 256 wins in his career.
How many strikeouts?
And he finished with 2,448 strikeouts. His pitching whip was 60.2, and he finished with a career ERA of 3.85. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
His whip was 60.2?
No, his WAR. Sorry, his WAR.
I thought he said whip.
I think I said his whip. I meant his WAR.
That's a terrible whip.
Yeah, no, his pitching WAR was 60 point whatever.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty solid.
I think he's a Hall of Famer, but
it's borderline.
I'll say this: what if, and this kind of goes with the discussion of likable or not. And you said like with Sammy, and he was pretty well liked. But what if it came out there was a positive test? Let's say 2003. Let's say one of the names that wasn't leaked gets leaked. Let's say it's King Griffey Jr. Does he? Now he's in the Hall of Fame, but let's say he's not in the Hall of Fame. It comes out Griffey Jr. is on the list. Does he still get in? Because he's the guy that everybody points to that is so well liked anyways.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. He's so well liked by players, by coaches, and in terms of the Hall of Fame, most importantly, baseball writers. They love the guy. He was so well liked that I think they overlook it. They kind of glaze over and don't really care as much. We know well what happened in Griffey's career. He didn't take steroids because he completely broke down there towards the end, which stinks.
Right.
I'm not a Mariners fan and I'm not a Reds fan. But
what he could have done in Great American if he would have been healthy, man.
Daggone, that guy. I mean, he's still. How many injury shortened seasons did he have there at the end? Like 3, 4.
I don't want to.
And he still hit. Did he hit 600? No, he didn't. Yeah, he did. Yeah. He did hit 600. Yep. Hit 600 on Father's Day, didn't he?
Nah, I think he hit 500 on Father's Day.
I think you're right.
600 was in Miami, I think.
Yeah.
In a half-empty Marlins.
Yeah. Yeah. So as injury prone as he was at the end of his career and he still put up 600 home runs, if he came out to have tested positive at some point, I mean, the dude was just phenomenal and consistently great.
Yeah.
He was a great ball player. his entire career. He came up swinging, went down swinging. I mean, he was.
And he was the guy, you talk about McGwire's swing was very compact and only probably works if he has that strength. Griffey's swing is the opposite. I mean, that's the swing you pretend. That's who you pretend to be. I mean, our interview with Bob Kendrick, he talked about how he was always Hank Aaron, and it was funny because even white kids would pretend to be Hank Aaron. Like, I grew up being King Griffey Jr. I was a left-handed batter. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be King Griffey Jr. And so to me,
you didn't turn into King Griffey Jr.
I didn't, but there were some early comps. Some coaches said some things. I don't know.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, that's I don't know, man. I think they should get in. I think put an asterisk in it, put a footnote in it, say, what happened, but tell the story of baseball. It's talking on SportsCenter, they were talking about how the ratings were better than they've been for any season of baseball ever.
Yeah. Yep.
The story needs to be told, and tell the story, be honest about the story.
Yep.
And that's the only way you're going to. It's like parents trying to hide things from their kids. It never is going to turn out well in the end. They're going to figure it out. And so if we're trying to grow a fan base, we've got to be honest with our history.
Yeah. And why is it up to ESPN to tell that story?
Right.
It shouldn't be. MLB, this is MLB history. Let MLB tell that story. Come on. I mean, if we embrace the history of the game, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever.
Right.
It's something that we look at and say, okay, this is our game.
Yeah.
We may not like certain points and certain aspects of it. There's certainly years that, we're not proud of. But you know what? Let's enjoy the game. Let's embrace the history of the game. And especially something as fun and as great as that. I alluded to it on Twitter, how important 1998 was to me personally.
Yeah.
And, that was my first trip to Wrigley Field, was 1998, in the midst of his 21 or 20 home run June. He didn't hit one when I was there. He went 0 for 5. Yeah. But it was towards the end of the month. I think it was June 23rd when I was there. They played the Cleveland Indians, and the Indians beat them two straight, swept a 2-game series with them. And I didn't get back until September of that year. I went to my second game was September 12th. Sammy Sosa hit number 60. And I remember to this day, on our way to Chicago, me and my dad, we stopped at Lafayette. I believe it was West Lafayette in Indiana is where we stayed the night. And we were at a gas station, and I had never seen a gas station that had a television attached to it. But there it was, a gas station that had a television attached to the gas pump. I'm pumping gas for my dad. He runs in to get us some stuff to drink, and I'm watching the news, the recap of the scores for the day, and I saw that Sammy Sosa hit number 59. And that's when I learned that, oh my goodness, tomorrow I could see number 60 and maybe 61.
Yeah.
Sure enough, we go to the game, we see him hit number 60. See, I'm so close to that ball, I can see the seams on it. I set over just off of the left field foul pole, and that's where he hit it. He hit it right over the left field bleachers. And I remember me and my dad went out to this place called Shamrock Seats, where we bought tickets for that game. We're going to see if they were open. If they were open, we're going to buy tickets for the next day. Next day, obviously, he hit 61 and 62.
Yeah.
And I remember walking over there and going to open the door, and the door was locked. They had closed for the day. And I said, well, let's just come back tomorrow. Let's come back tomorrow. If we can't get tickets, we'll hang out outside the stadium.
Yeah.
And we'll have a chance to catch number 61 or 62. Let's do that, because that would be fun. Yeah. And my dad said, no, we got to get home. So we left. But still, that's such an awesome memory. And that season was just such an important season for me as a fan. And now we're acting like it didn't happen because we don't like the way that it happened. And that's just no.
I agree.
That's Major League Baseball for you. I feel like it's always had its nose up to what it didn't want and what it didn't like. Yeah. And if the dollar margins are there, then we'll think about it. If they're not there, then you know what? Stub my nose.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. And that's kind of the network that baseball, and that's always been baseball's downfall. Mm-hmm. That's been the negative, is the people who run it, their attitude towards things like that, their disconnect from real fans. Yeah. And whether that be pre-segregation or not Jackie Robinson,
desegregation.
Yeah, desegregation. Whether it be that or whether it be, the steroid era, I think, or all the strikes in between and all the issues in between, there's always been a disconnect between ownership and the fans and who actually plays this game and who actually loves this game compared to those who just try and squeeze every penny out of it and make money off of it. Mm-hmm. And it's always been baseball's biggest issues. And it continues to this day when we're in the coronavirus and we can't get baseball. And part of me cringes watching that, thinking Rob Manfred is, sitting there twirling his mustache like the bad guy in Looney Tunes, probably thinking like
he doesn't have a mustache, Nate.
Well, he does in my vision. And he's probably like, man, when we come back, I'm gonna personally inject some people with some horse blood because I want the money that's gonna come along with. I mean, he has to be salivating thinking of the money that came in because of that, and that's what bothers me. Because ultimately, Bud Selig could have stopped that if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to because he wanted the money, and then he wanted to thumb his nose at it.
Yep. And I think if something like that does happen, don't be surprised if we have. I don't think a home run race is going to happen.
Right.
It's going to be it's going to be too short difficult. Of a season. And I don't even mean this year. I mean like in 2021 or 2022. Right. Because what is it now? 72 is the record? 75? I can't remember. 75?
Yeah, something like that. No, nobody remembers because it doesn't mean anything anymore.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
Massive.
And that's not going to happen again. It's just not going to happen again. And it's going to be almost impossible to duplicate.
It happens on MLB The Show a lot with my guy, but whatever.
Well, yeah, that's you, though. But you might see some kind of like spectacle.
Yeah.
Of, this guy's thrown, I don't know, like 3 straight perfect games because Rob Manfred has dipped his fingers in some of this or something. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, something's going to come out. He's going to expand the league. So he's going to put in probably two expansion teams. I think that's going to happen, if not by the CBA, but then shortly after the CBA, because I think there's going to be work stoppage. And that's something that's going to help save the game. It helped back in the early 90s with the Marlins and the Rockies. And then I believe it helped as well with Tampa and Arizona.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see them expand. I just hope if they do, it doesn't water down, because that's the biggest thing. When you first expand, you don't have the talent to meet. I mean, there's only a certain number of big league players.
Yep.
And so there's only a certain number of guys that can do what big league players do.
Yep.
So you had 2 complete rosters, 50 guys. There are a lot of guys in the minor leagues that can play at the major league level. There's not 50 guys that can start at the major league level.
Right.
And that's where you're going to run into a fluctuation period. And that's the problem with if you do it after a work stoppage and after a year and a half after you didn't play because of coronavirus because you were stupid, then you come back and the product's watered down. Mm-hmm. I think it could hurt baseball because those fans that are coming back after the work stoppage are going to be like, "What's this?" I mean, you're
I don't care about these guys. They're
two
terrible
expansion teams. I don't care about this. Now, I think if you relocated a couple of the cities, I think that may be a better option. But I don't think they want to do that. I don't think that makes the dollars and cents. I think that makes the sense to do it in baseball.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes the financial sense.
It makes a baseball sense. It doesn't make financial sense. Now, on the financial side, it makes more sense to expand because now you've got more revenue that you can share.
Right. More markets.
Exactly. And I think that's what he's going to go for. So you might see, I don't know where you would put it. Maybe a team in Charlotte or something like
Portland
that.
Portland and Nashville, man.
Nashville might be a good one. I don't know. I can't tell you because there's always going to be someone that's going to complain about their market, especially with these stupid blackouts. There's always going to be someone that's going to complain that there's market infiltration. Baltimore Orioles were really upset when Montreal went to Washington.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, Baltimore, you don't have a market anyway, so don't worry about it. But and it's going to water it down. Like you said, it's going to water down the talent. It's going to water down what we're seeing in the game. I think 30 is a good number. If you put in 2 more teams after you've had a couple of really good, solid years of a lot of good, solid talent coming through and not having just 5 rounds of an MLB draft, then we can talk about that. I don't think an expansion is all that bad unless you're expanding for expansion's sake, and that's exactly what Rob Manfred would do. Yeah.
That's exactly what he's going to do. And it's scary. It really is, because I don't know. I don't know. I really think that hopefully what's going to come out of this Yankees investigation or the letter that he wrote, I think there's potential that he isn't the commissioner much longer. I don't want to ever root for somebody to lose their job, but in this case, it's not like he's going to be homeless.
Right.
He's educated. I think it's best for baseball if he's no longer the commissioner, because honestly, I think he is all of the bad aspects and all the bad traits of Bud Selig. Yeah. With none of the good ones. And I don't even know what the good ones would be for Bud Selig.
Bud Selig had a lot of foresight in what could potentially grow the game.
He did. He also gave organizations to his friends and had a lot of...
Oh, he was a scumbag. Don't get me wrong.
Right. He had a lot of but you're right. And so, I think Manfred is all the negatives. I don't think he's any of the positives. I don't think he has any foresight for what's good for the game. And all the changes he institutes are terrible for the game. Whether it's killing the minor leagues, whether it's the pace of play initiatives and all those things where he's trying to make baseball something it's not, rather than celebrate the uniqueness that baseball is. Stop trying to make baseball into football and basketball. It's baseball. Let it be different.
Yep.
Advertise how great it is to go to a baseball game where you can sit back with your friends and family and have a dog and watch the game and not feel like every second is super intense. But then at the end of the game, it's going to be super intense and there's no clock. So you have to get the outs. You have to perform to win the game. You can't rely on the clock.
I want a dog.
I do too.
I want a puppy dog and a hot dog. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
But
those are the things that
you're absolutely right.
Baseball needs to celebrate, and instead of doing that, they're like, well, here's all the reasons you shouldn't like our sport.
Yeah. Hey, it's too long, so I'm going to implement all these rules that's going to make it from 2 hours and 58 minutes average game time to, over 3 hours. Way to go. Right. The only thing that you did that you thought was going to better the game, you didn't do what you thought it was going to do.
Right. It made no difference, and it just made everybody mad, and it changed the product. It wasn't as good. It's not as enjoyable. And even, we didn't even get to see yet, or we haven't gotten to see yet, what this three batter minimum for relief pitchers is going to do.
Hate it. I already hate it.
But that completely changes. First of all, it just changes everything.
It ruined one of our games on MLB The Show because you had a position player in there and you had to have him in there for 3 batters. Then you went to take him out and you couldn't do it because he hadn't faced his minimum 3 batters, but you couldn't get out of it because you had a position player on the mound. So
then it locked it. Yeah.
Locked it out. Way to go.
I mean,
Way to go, Rob Manfred.
Yeah. Well, it is. And it's not going to help the game. I mean, again, we're talking, even if these work, all of those time initiatives work. You're talking going from 2 hours and 50-minute games to 2 hours and 40-minute games. You're going to tell me that those 10 minutes, that's the 10 minutes that's going to make a difference. That's the 10 minutes where the fans are going to be like, nope, I'm going to turn it off.
I don't even think it's 10 minutes that they're going to get.
That would be huge. If they shaved 10 minutes off of games, they would throw a party and be like, this is super successful. And it's like, Rob, it's not. 10 minutes
3 minutes.
Matter.
I think it's 3 minutes is what they were estimating. And, like, who cares?
Right.
Who cares?
Start a World Series game before 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to matter more than your 3 minutes.
You've implemented rules that do change the game. They absolutely change the way the game is played and managed for the sake of 3 minutes. And what you've done instead, you've taken it from 2:58, not 2:55, 2 hours and 55 minutes. You've taken it from 2 hours and 58 minutes to 3 hours and 10 minutes. That's what you've done.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because of review. Games are longer because of review. Well, I've got my ideas on that. I'm going to go ahead and stand them right now because I think they're good ideas. I don't think managers should be able to call reviews. I think reviews should only be called by the booth and on run scoring plays. That's it.
I don't think reviews should be in any sports ever. I think we just need to all grow up and realize that people make mistakes and umpires are going to make mistakes and officials are going to make mistakes.
I agree.
And just realize that for 100+ years before there was video review, we all got along just fine. So let's just put our binky down and be okay with getting screwed over every now and then. That's what I think.
I agree. But if we're going to have it, that's how it needs to happen.
Yeah. But
that way they can look at it at the booth. If it's a run scoring play, the run scores, they can go ahead and look at it and say, okay, the play's clean. We're not reviewing this. And then once they review it, it's super quick. They've already seen it. So
here's the thing I don't understand about Manfred. He doesn't want shorter games because shorter games mean less ad revenue in the long run. I mean, if baseball games were 2 hours even, and that was the average, that substantially cuts the next TV deals that they're getting. Because advertisers are not going to pay more.
No.
They're not going to say, we're going to pay more for less ads. I
don't know.
Advertisers pay what they pay for baseball because it takes up such a large part of the TV calendar. And
Turner Broadcasting just bought a bunch.
Exactly. It's about $1 billion. So, Rob Manfred doesn't want shorter baseball games.
No.
He wants you to think he wants shorter baseball games. But it in the end, it doesn't affect the game. It makes the game worse by trying to make it faster so that you can get more ad revenue.
Yeah, I think Rob Manfred just wants less baseball.
Yeah, he does. He does. He hates baseball.
Yep.
All right, so this was going to be a short episode.
Yeah, turned it into a regular episode.
53 minutes. Aww.
She's sleeping.
That's sweet.
That's for all of you guys. That's not for Nate.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got nothing because I don't have any animals at my house.
I wish that was a dog.
Yeah. I've got the shelf that my wife decorated.
It's a nice shelf. Your wife did a good job on it.
I know. You see our baseballs?
Yeah, that's such a cool idea. You're not pointing the camera at it at all, but that's cool. You're pointing the camera at the wall.
I'm not very good at this. There's a bowl up there with baseballs, and they're all baseballs when we were dating that I got her at games.
That's so sweet. I wish I had baseballs in my house. I've got baseballs in random places, so I don't have like a bowl of baseballs. I've got like
a George Strait song. I've got baseballs in random places.
Exactly. I have baseballs on my bookshelf. I've got baseballs on my work desk. I've got baseballs in my kitchen for some reason. I've got baseballs in my bathroom for some reason. I've got them in my coat closet.
Put them in a bowl, man.
Decorate. I've got them in my nightstand in my bedroom. I think the girls have a couple of baseballs in their room. I've got baseballs in pretty much every room in this house. My son has 2 baseballs in his room.
Does he sleep with one?
No.
Or is that not safe?
It's not safe. He's got one that has his footprint on it, and then the one that is up on a shelf. The one that you got him is up on a shelf.
There we go. It better be.
Yep.
Better be.
Yep.
I mean, okay, if it's not safe, you're teaching him to be scared of the baseball, Caleb. That's my
No.
biggest problem here. You're telling him it's not safe for it to be in his crib. He's gonna be scared of the ball.
I just don't want him to die. So
what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So
you should tell my wife that.
I will. Where is she?
She's asleep. It's midnight. It's actually almost 12:30.
Yeah, my wife's probably awake though because I don't have headphones on and I've been very loud. So
sorry, Annie.
So, anyways, I've enjoyed this full-length episode with you.
Me too. Me too. We should do more YouTube versions.
We should. Well, when there's baseball back and we can watch a game and then talk about it.
Did you say women's baseball?
No, I said when there's baseball.
Oh, I thought you said women's baseball. I'd be all for women's baseball.
Katie.
Like a league of their own?
I'm just kidding.
That was good baseball.
I would be for any baseball at this point.
Yeah.
Just any American baseball. I'm volunteering to play. Whatever. I'll play in the women's league too. I'll play in whatever.
They're better than you.
I know they are.
Everybody's better than you.
They can throw. I can't.
That's true.
Arm's hurting right now. But anyways.
Dude, you're just like we won't talk about the episode that we recorded today, but you're just like anti-woman today.
Oh my word.
Not really, people, not really.
No one's gonna watch this. Not 53 minutes of it.
No, they cut out after like 15 minutes and we stopped talking about the documentary and started talking about just Rob Manfred because we were so mad at him.
Yeah, basically.
Listen, I'm running for an MLB commissioner.
I don't think it's a position you run for.
Well, it's going to be this year.
It looks like you have a flat top haircut right now. Hey, Caleb, where can people find you? For your
on the tweeter. You can find me on Twitter at Caleb G. Webb. Where can they find you, brother?
At Nate_Hale. Find the podcast at Mound Pod. Like us, review. We've got some great episodes coming up.
We do. All right, man. You're going out of town.
I'm going out of town.
I probably shouldn't tell people that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now they're gonna like.
Here's his address.
We're going to the Rona.
I'm gonna put his address and social security number in the comment section.
Yeah, don't.
Okay.
Don't do that.
All right. Well,
this is awkward.
Until next time. Deuces.
See you, man.